Hey all, today we are going to discuss how to do inverted harriers. Inverted harriers are one of my favorite 3D maneuvers. They're very challenging at first and they can be a little bit confusing, but they're really not as difficult as you think. So I'm going to try something a little different, and I'm just going to do a full flight that consists primarily of inverted harriers. Alright, throughout this flight I'm going to discuss how to use the throttle and the elevator together, how to use the rudder and the ailerons together, and just simple tips for different kinds of drills to teach you how to turn, how to fly straight, and how to maintain balance the whole time you're in an inverted harrier. Now, one of my favorite drills when I first started doing inverted harriers was to go out and fly straight into myself, then stop, push the plane out, fly back out, and then just slow it down and fly back to myself and just do an inverted harrier again. Doing this drill over and over and over, you learn a lot about how to steer the plane and how to maintain control. All right, the next thing we want to talk about is how the throttle and the elevator work together. So if you go back to the old muscle car days, think about power brake in a car, right? So you're pushing down on the brake, you're pushing down on the accelerator, the car's not really moving, but the wheels are spinning. You're doing the exact same thing when you're doing an inverted harrier, when you're doing an upright harrier. What we're doing is we're pushing the tail down with the accelerator, and the brakes are your elevator and the rudder, and the more they're deflected, the more braking power you have. And so we use the throttle in conjunction with the elevator. Now you can see that I'm not using full elevator, I'm deflecting it up and down to let that air go past to maintain a consistent high alpha angle. Alright, so now we got to talk about turning the plane and how to maintain control and how not to get confused. Okay, the way that this works is when you're looking at the plane, the surface that is closest to you, the tip that is closest to you, you push it the direction you want to go with the rudder. All right, in order to make this make sense, I did a quick animation, so I'm going to break up the flight really quick and I'm going to take a look at this. Okay, so we're looking at the tail. I want the tail to go to the left. So I give it left rudder, and that's going to turn it to the left. If I want the tail to go to the right, I give it right rudder, and the tail goes to the right. It's the same thing if we're looking at the wingtip. If the wingtip, I want it to go left, I give it left rudder, and it rotates. I give it right, it's going to rotate to the right. All right, so let's go through all the steps here. We want to take the spinner and we want to move it to the left. That means we're going to enter left rudder. When we enter left rudder, we add just a little bit of throttle because we've deflected our surfaces, and that's creating braking. That is going to cause the plane to turn to the left, but it is also going to cause the plane to dip to the left, which means we've got to add right aileron. When we add right aileron, that balances out the plane, and then we continue until the turn is complete. Okay, when you look at my rudder in these sticks, you can see that I'm always holding a small percentage of rudder in there. That's due to the slipstream of the prop, and it's pushing the plane to the side. So I'm always adding a little bit of rudder, and I'm always correcting with a little bit of aileron. Remember these stick combinations. When I'm using left rudder, I'm using right ailerons. When I'm using right rudder, I'm using left ailerons. Those are so important when you're making corrections. Here you can see I'm starting to get some wing rock, right? That means I'm going downwind and I don't have quite enough speed, okay? Now, to correct that wing rock, most of the time people will grab their ailerons and they'll move them very quickly. It is better to correct using throttle. Look how much more steady I am right here. Look how solid I am. I can do a funnel hover because I'm deep, solid, and I have a lot of throttle. Okay, the throttle is the brakes are holding back that throttle. But when I start wing rocking, I don't have enough air going across the surfaces to balance that out and hold it steady. So when you start getting wing rock, correct with throttle and then just a little bit of aileron. I run about 70% expo in my ailerons to make them very stable in the center. Watch here, I'll go up and over and I'll just kind of do a big waterfall-y, and I go into an elevator and you can see I start getting that wing rock. Throttle up a little bit and correct very quickly. I'm anticipating the correction as much as correcting for it actually happening, because I know what it's going to do when I get into that position. As you get better with corrections, you will learn to start flying very straight lines by just making quick corrections. Once you've went up and down field a few times, then try something a little different. Maybe bring the plane towards yourself. You can see here, I bring it up, pull it into a hover, just rotate it around a little bit, and then go back away from myself. I'll do it again. Just turn it around, bring it to myself, pull it into a hover, rotate it around a little bit, and do it again. All of these little exercises, if you practice them on the simulator, you practice them with the plane, they're going to help you learn how to have good control of your plane when you're doing any type of maneuver. So I do drills with inverted Harriers, upright Harriers. I add in hovers, rolling Harriers. I do the same maneuvers over and over, but I continue to do them. One of the things that I think is a downfall to what I used to do a long time ago was I would do one pass. I would do one inverted Harrier pass and I'd be like, oh, that's good enough, and then I would stop. But it doesn't work that way. You gotta stay in it. You gotta learn how to fly in that orientation. So this is something I refer to as my out and back drills. That's just what I call them in my head. So I just go out with an upright Harrier, come back, go back to hover, lean forward, go to upright Harrier, stop, come back, in inverted Harrier. So here I'm coming in and I pull up and I lose my rudder, and you can see I lose control of the rudder and I have to use the throttle and the elevator to get myself out of that. But then I just go back out and balance myself again and come back in. I am doing these crosswind, and so I'm having to fight the wind a little bit. But by doing these crosswind, it teaches you a lot about control. It teaches you a lot about throttle control, because the air is different going across the wings by far. Check this out. So I go into an upright Harrier and I'm downwind and I don't have enough airflow, I don't have enough engine, and so I'm like, the plane's bobbling all over, and then I go to flip it over and I almost lose the plane. I drop it clear down because there was that crazy little mini tornado air pocket that was right there in front of me. It started when I went into that hover and I lost my rudder, and then as I came in there, it just sucked the air out from underneath me. You don't really notice those kind of things when you're flying fast, but when you're doing this low and slow stuff, it gets a little bit spooky, because when you hit those air pockets, your plane just drops. Okay, on my low and slow planes, I have my elevators set at 48 degrees and about 35% expo, 40% expo, somewhere in there. I am 42 degrees on my rudder with 65 to 70% expo, and then I am 35 degrees of throw on the ailerons with 70% expo. That gives me a good, solid, stable plane that is still very nimble. It also makes it quick when I'm doing rolling Harriers. So my elevators are moving fast and the plane stays at a nice high alpha pitch. My intent with this video is to try something a little different. Do a full flight in inverted Harriers, or at least primarily inverted Harriers, and let you see how my sticks work and what I'm doing the entire time. Now, every plane's a little different and sticks are going to be a little different every time, but hopefully this will help you out. Leave your comments below. I'd love to hear what you want to see. And until next time, please like, share, subscribe, and happy landings.